Shalom, all praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Makakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well through the scriptures. Peace to all for elect. This will be sort of like a response to Elder Malcolm's video. Let me see. Entitled, There Be Spirits Created for Vengeance. You can see it right here. And he did this video based off of this video entitled The New Black Liberation is on the Rise. All right. And a quick overview. Basically, so-called black people, Negroes, is basically tired and fed up with white supremacy. Now, initially, what were we taught? How were we taught to fight and to combat white supremacy? You would march and you would have a sit-in and you would protest and you would boycott and you would picket, things of that nature. But what has that gotten us? It has gotten us nowhere. All right. The same way you got little pieces in history where you got the names like the Scottsboro Boys when in the early 1900s some young black men were accused of rape and went to jail and they were come to find out they were innocent. The same thing you got with the Central Park Five, which happened in the 80s with several black so-called young black men were accused of rape and murder of a white woman. And Donald Trump called out an ad for the death penalty and come to find out the boys are innocent. And there was never an apology or never a statement that he made retracting that, saying he was wrong, anything like that. So basically, we've been oppressed consistently. And now, instead of responding softly to the oppression, now you have certain so-called black groups that's trying to respond the way so-called white people responded during the Revolutionary War. See, no one speaks about that. All right. What was happening? You had something called taxation without representation. That's what they teach us in school, right? The British Crown was taxing the residents of America, okay? But they were not giving them a voice in the government. Taxation without representation. So they roused up, they got militias, they banded together and they went to war. They didn't boycott. They didn't have picketings. They didn't do peaceful protest. They responded with violence. And now you have so-called Negroes that's being fed up and are taking the same steps that so-called white people took with the liberation of America from England. So with that, we're going to start off. Before we get into the video, we're going to read Genesis 49. And this is the prophecy that Jacob gave to his sons. All right, this is Genesis 49:1. And Jacob called them to his sons and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. So we're living in the last days right now. Okay, I'm going to jump down to verse 8. Judah. Now, Judah is the tribe of the so-called Negroes. All right, Judah was the head tribe of the Israelites. Okay, and that's why the oppression is maximized when it's dealing with Negroes. The so-called white man, he oppresses the whole world. Look at what's happening in Iraq and Iran and the citizens there. How he deemed them terrorists. And now the country is more unstable than it was when Saddam was there. All right, so he can come and give them so-called democracy, so he can put a puppet government, a puppet governor that will be in agreement and alliance with his policy. That's what they do. If you don't agree with what they want to do, their system or their agenda, they demonize you with their media, have a false flag attack, and then they go to war against you. That's what they do. That's what they have been doing. That's what they have done. Okay. But when it comes to the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, they oppress all our people. Just read the history. Read the studies and the tests that they do. But Judah gets the brunt of it. The darkies, the so-called Negroes, the black man, because they was the head tribe. It says, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thy enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Right, thy father's children shall bow down before thee because he was the head tribe, the kingly line. All right, David was from the line of Judah, Solomon, all the way down to whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus. His name is Jehoshaphat. That's the line of the kings. All right. And in the end, their hand will be in the neck of their enemies. Those that have spoiled them, locked them up in prison houses, killed them with impunity. And impunity means without suffering punishment. Because you speak about you so-called white people, you'll say slavery was your fathers and your ancestors, and that didn't have nothing to do with you, but they did not receive punishment. So do you so-called white people believe that your ancestors is burning in hell right now? Is that what you're saying to me for slavery? Oh, that wasn't me. I didn't do that. That was my ancestor. So you mean to tell me your grandfather, great-grandfather, probably 70 to 80% of your line is in hell? Exactly. Of course you don't think and believe nothing like that. Verse 9, Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art going up. He stooped down. He couched as a lion. And as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? Who shall rouse him up? Like as an old lion. See, our people, the so-called Negro, the black man, is an old lion. Been beat, whipped. Basically a circus lion. Been tamed. That's why the scripture says, who shall rouse him up? When shall Judah give a voice for the injustices that's been happening? All right, like a real solid. What do lions do? Lions, that's a warrior type animal. That's not a prey animal. They hunt and they also fight. So the scripture saying, who shall rouse up Judah? Look at what's been happening to Judah. You got all this, everybody feared the so-called black man, but why? How many instances do you have of so-called black people getting killed by so-called white people versus black people killing whites? What's the statistics? See, the so-called white man, he always try to deal with numbers and statistics, but what is that particular statistic? What is the statistic? As far as whites killing blacks versus so-called blacks killing whites, whether it be law enforcement or a regular citizen. What's the stats? Since we so armed and dangerous. But let me look up that word rouse up in the Hebrew just to see what it say. This is Genesis 49 and 9. Hopefully, Lord willing, this phone load up in time. Okay. Who shall rouse him up? Quam mean rise. To rise, stand up. To arise in a hostile stance. To become powerful. To come on the scene. To be established. To be confirmed. All right. So who shall rouse him up? Well, the answer is the Lord. See, the Lord is putting the spirit out there. First of all, the Lord putting his spirit out there. When you read, this is the table of, let me see. When you read Joel 2 in chapter 28, and it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. That's why the Elder Malcolm video is called There Be Spirits Created for Vengeance. Because when you go into the video, that particular gentleman, he don't have the truth 100%. You know, he ain't got the name of the Lord. He going to books that's fables. But that particular spirit is from the Lord. Because he's roused up as a so-called black man. Okay? It says, and it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. And it says, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit. So the spirit of the Lord is out there. You got heathens having dreams and visions. You know, you got his children having dreams and visions. And we're living out prophecy. Jacob said in Genesis 49, let me tell you what shall befall you in the last days. That's prophecy. We living it out. Judah is a lion's whelp. From an old prey, he has gone up, but who shall rouse him up? The Lord is rousing him up, and it's time now. You see? And then you'll have some that'll say that'll fear this and that'll, oh, they're terrorists and they're this. Well, it's the same thing that that all you got to do is equate Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, what they going through, with the American Revolution. And the same way you glorify that, the 4th of July, the Constitution, we was liberated. This, in fact, is much, 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 much worse. Much worse. But let me play some of the video because he makes some valid statements. I'm hoping it'll play. My data is slow. Salakia, forgive me for that. But I say about 20 to 30 minutes because the video is about an hour long and the woman speaks for this first 10 to 12 minutes. But everything he was saying that through the Spirit of the Lord, I'm making a video on was valid. It cannot be denied. The information, the viewpoints, it cannot be resisted. It just can't. Lord willing to play. But as always, what happens? And then you got the CIA. I'll just speak into a play. You have these so-called these white groups, these branches of government. They come up with protocols and agendas for things of this nature, like the Black Messiah Project, which was any so-called black man that will come up and stand and rise for their people. If they couldn't be infiltrated and coerced to forward the agenda of white supremacy, then they would be killed. That's why you think Malcolm X and Martin Luther King was killed. They had two different ideologies. One was by any means necessary, and the other one was by peace. But yet they both were killed. Why? Medgar Evers, one of the, I believe he was one of the people that instituted the NAACP that was forwarding it. He was killed, and then what happened? The founding fathers of the NAACP is majority white people. See, so-called Negroes, they don't know that. The people that founded the NAACP, the majority of them, are so-called white people. Because they infiltrate our organizations to influence and control how we'll behave. It's that simple. The same thing with the 501c3 charter. The thing that so-called separates church from government and things like that. Well, first of all, the church and state was already separated with the Constitution. They didn't need a 501c3. But what was happening was in the 40s and 50s and things of that nature, when so-called white people would commit terrorism against Negroes, where would Negroes go and talk and come up with plans? And they would go to church. They would discuss these different matters in church. So Lyndon B. Johnson instituted the 501c3 charter to have an influence on the church, so-called Negroes and Latinos and Native Americans as well, but predominantly Negroes, to infiltrate their voice and their opinion, So this is not planned. So Anyway, I'll just end it there. Lord willing, this video is edifying and helpful. But I really wanted to let this play. Hopefully, I can come back and do a response to it. But yeah, man, you're gonna have and they are a so-called black militia group. See, you got a lot of white militia groups. No one says anything. No one calls them terrorists and things of that nature. But what do the white militia groups stand for? A lot of them will tell you that they stand for the Constitution. And they're right. When you actually go into their ideology, they're right. Because the Constitution, the Second Amendment, is the right to bear arms. And they tell you that that's the only way to stop a tyrannical government is if you have your own arms. And this guy quoted Thomas Jefferson, which says, when you can defend yourself, you change from a subject to a citizen, right? And with the laws and the legislation that the government is passing, trying to take away people's rights, trying to take away their gun rights, take away their certain privileges, they taxing you out the wazoo, things of that nature. So there's certain so-called white militia groups, and they are correct in their ideology of protecting the Constitution. But what about these so-called black militia groups where they just want the freedom to live in peace without the fear of being hunted down by an angry so-called white man? And the law and the so-called law and justice of the land being for everybody. Because the people that they talking about in this video, these so-called white people killed this so-called black man. And the black man was innocent. He wasn't suspicious. I mean, any type of excuse you would have to justify your killing of this man, it wouldn't stand. And even the the vehicle that they used to kill him, that was parked at the man's house. That wasn't evidence. That wasn't taped off or nothing like that. So it's a whole lot, to that he said in this video that you gotta consider. But the thing is, I'll read the scripture. This is Psalm 50:3, I believe. No, it ain't 50:3. It's 58:3. It says, the wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. So yes, you can be born evil. You got this whole notion, everybody, and you just got to teach. No. If you believe in the Bible, then no. It says the wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. And the race of the wicked, according to the Bible, is the Edomites. And you so-called white people are Edomites, according to the Bible. If your father, regardless of what color you are, if your father DNA genealogy go back to Esau, you an Edomite. And your white skin is just an indication. It's not the last final straw. Because, through race mixing and seed mingling, you got, people can look like other nations, but because of the seed of their father, they'll be the seed of their father. They that nation. That's how the Bible determines nationality. So whether you dark skin or light skin or white or whatever, if your father go back to the line of Esau, then you are the wicked. You was born evil. Look, they in rulership. You got Europe. Done colonized Africa. They done colonized the Americas. They got the majority of the world, and look how the world being ran: wickedness and evil, homosexuality. You ain't even eating real food. The sky polluted. When you read about the history and the other nations that had control and power, You don't read nothing of this magnitude with wickedness. Animals becoming extinct. Nah, nah. It's the so-called white man. Okay? It says their poison is like the poison of a serpent. They are like the deaf adder that stoppeth her ear. Now, snakes don't have ears. They read vibrations. And so it's basically comparing the so-called white man to a snake. And he is a snake. All right? They won't hear. The so-called black people been crying and voicing these concerns since forever. But they ain't listening to them. They can't hear it. They cannot comprehend. They can't be empathetic with you. All right? It's just, first of all, the Bible says so. They cannot be empathetic with you. Let's read that. This is the book of Amos 1:11. It says, thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4 I will not turn away the punishment thereof. So the Lord ain't gonna never forgive you. The Lord just said he will not turn away the punishment thereof. So when you look up Edom in the Zondervan's Bible Dictionary, it says a neighbor of the Israelites, one of the only nations that was not promised mercy from the Lord. So you ain't gonna get no mercy from the Lord. And this is why. Because he did pursue his brother with the sword. Who is your brother? So-called black people. Because Abraham had Isaac, and Isaac had 2 sons, Jacob and Esau. And Jacob became the ancestor of the Israelites, which make up the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. And Esau became the ancestor of the Edomites, which makes up the Caucasians / Europeans / a lot of Turkish people / you so-called Jewish people. Y'all actually descend from Esau. It says, because he did pursue his brother with the sword and did cast off all pity. Now, when you go into that word pity in the Hebrew, it's rachamia. All right. And that means a mother's love, compassion, mercy, empathy, things of that nature. They don't got it. They don't got it. All right, here it is. We were slaves. We suffering from post-traumatic slave syndrome. And you so-called white people lose a job and your mother died. And what do? She needs therapy. She needs psychiatry. You go to a therapist, you go to psychiatry, you take Valium and Xanax and things like that for your petty little life mishaps. But here it is. You got a whole nation of people that was in slavery. And then after slavery, they faced Jim Crow. And then after Jim Crow, they faced mental slavery. Well, all the superheroes white, all the bad guys is black. You got young dark-skinned girls playing with white baby dolls. Anytime you cut the TV on, everybody you look up to, your superhero is white. Superman, Batman, going to Dragon Ball. Even in Dragon Ball Z, they so-called white. But then when they get even more powerful, when they level up to Super Saiyan, they get blonde hair and blue eyes. Now how does that play on the psyche of a child? And you think and you so-called white people, you go into your science and you know these things. You go into studies and you enact these different things. So it says, and did cast off all pity. So you're not empathetic with us. And they got this science called neuron mirroring. And when you look it up, neuron mirroring is when you see something happen to somebody else, you can empathize with it. You can see that happening to yourself. And that enables you to be compassionate. So-called white people doesn't have neuron mirroring when it comes to people of color facing situations. There's studies on this. They showed a whole bunch of they showed white people images of accidents happening to different types of people. Tripping and falling, this, that, and the third, just images. And when those images happen to so-called white people, they brain ignited. Why? Because they're so-called white people. They can see that happening to themselves. They was empathetic to that cause. But when those different things happen to people of color, predominant, it didn't matter about the people of color. It could have been Asian, whatever. But predominantly, when it happened to so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, their brain had the same activity as if your brain was staring at a blank white screen, which means that what they neurons that fire for empathy didn't fire off with you, and that's the scripture. They cast off Amos 1:11. Thus said Yahweh, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4 I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because he did pursue his brother with the sword, and did cast off all pity, and his anger did tear perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever. You done kept your wrath forever. Slavery ain't over with. The majority of white people still hate so-called Negroes. Just because you ain't out there part of the KKK, that don't mean nothing. It's about your viewpoint. The majority of you so-called white people, you look at us as this is how you look at us. This is Wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter. It says, Wisdom of Solomon 5:4. We fools accounted his life madness. You account our life madness. You account our life worthless. Why? Because a lot of us don't have your education, your college degree, which means if you ain't going to school for medicine or a trade, the only thing it really teach you is to not believe in God. You don't even really need it. You got people now picking up trades off YouTube. So you account our life madness because some of us don't have educations, right? It said, and his end to be without honor. That's how the average so-called white person look at us. Our life is madness, and our end is without honor, right? But anyway, Lord willing, this was the edifying lesson to the hopeful elect. All praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakah.